Hi, my name's Helva and I'm from Canada. I love Jesus with all my heart. I love his word and I love it when conspiracy facts line up with Bible prophecy.
Hi, I'm Julianne from Australia. You'll hear my story, among others, on Awaken to Truth. See you there.
Hello, my name is Christine, and thank you for joining us on Awaken to Truth. I love the Lord and I love His Word. I will be sharing my stories with you as well.
Hello and welcome again to Awaken to Truth. We are so glad you're joining us today. We are talking today about clandestine tactics of the enemy on the world population, targeted individuals, etc. And thankfully, I'm not one of those, but we're going to hear from someone who is.
Well, thank you for that intro, Helva. And hello over there, my sister in Australia. How are you?
Well, awake. I'd rather be in bed, but never mind.
Well, we dragged you out of bed
Yes.
for a pretty interesting topic today. So, like she
Oh, I'm
said,
thrilled.
yeah,
Mm.
it'll be interesting, and it's very much on the fringe. And like she said, I have experienced this, and I've actually experienced quite a bit of this since 2004. As I have explained in the past, I was an alien abductee. But it's more than that. I was a targeted individual. I was monitored. I was thrown into black projects that without my consent, as far as I know. They do have ways of manipulating you into saying yes to things you don't know what you're saying yes to, but that's a whole nother story. And we're not going down that rabbit hole today. Today, we're going to address, like she said, the clandestine tactics of the enemy in the modern age and how it affects every country. It's not just the United States. This happens abroad. It happens in every country. They practice these tactics out on their own citizens just to test them out. It's mind control techniques. And the reason why I'm bringing it forward is not only should we shine the light on the darkness and the evil that is done illegally in our world, and without checks and balances, without any repercussions, the criminals do not go to jail. That's not the only reason, but because they are putting together the beast system through these means. And it's going to, by the time we're done with this video, I will be connecting some of the dots, not all of the dots, because we definitely don't have enough time in one video. But I am going to address some of the issues and some of the weapons of modern age. People don't realize that we are actually in a war. We're in a holy war now. It's just that the tactics of the enemies and the weapons of the enemies are not what they once were. Bombing and all these things that we're seeing on the news right now. There's so much more to what's going on in this world. So I'll start with targeted individuals. A targeted individual is somebody who has things like gang stalking and mobbing, and those are bullying or harassment of an individual by a group, often in a tag team production kind of way. Yes, production, like actors, and very specific, directed at the target. So it would only make sense to the target. They gaslight, stalk, and terrify targeted individuals through threats and staged harassment. Targeted surveillance. This is another tactic they use. This includes cameras planted and often people planted in the person's personal life, including their job, home, friends, church, and pretty much every aspect of one's life. This tends to cause isolation for people that have been going through this for any length of time. It's pretty horrific. Another way of instilling fear is by constantly breaking into their homes, their cars, and leaving lots of clues. They want to be seen. They want you to know. They want you to act irrationally. They want to set you off. But they don't steal anything. They just make it very known that they've been there. Okay. They're trying to gaslight you into a rage or calling the police or acting irrational or paranoid. This discredits you when you speak out. While the police can do nothing because there's no evidence, things being tossed around or out of place in your home isn't evidence, so when nothing is stolen, there's nothing to report. This is the problem. Sometimes the target is being targeted for a killing. It's a form of assassination carried out by the government outside of judicial process or the battlefield. This happens every day in the United States and other countries, if not all of them. They use such weapons as biological and chemical assaults. A biological attack is an intentional release of a pathogen, which is a disease-causing agent, or a biotoxin, which is poisonous substance produced by a living organism, such as humans, plants, or animals. An attack against people can be used to cause illness, death, fear, societal disruption, economic damage. An attack on agricultural plants and animals would primarily cause economic damage, loss of confidence in food supply, possible loss of life. It is useful to distinguish between two kinds of biological agents. Transmittable agents that spread from person to person, like smallpox or Ebola, or agents that may cause adverse effects when exposed to an individual, but that do not make those individuals contagious to others. For example, anthrax. These are some of the tactics. Then we have this one I'm familiar with. Chemical nerve agents such as sarin, tabun, saman, I believe Agent Orange. The list goes on and on. Many of these are derived from agricultural bug spray, but on a much more potent level and much more deadly. Then we have remote weapons assaults and electronic harassment. This can include microwave beams, cell phone towers, supercomputers targeting people through satellites are used to stream hateful messages into their subconscious minds 24/7.
March 16th, 2018. The U.S. government's Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, commonly known as DARPA, announces a bold initiative to develop what they call next-generation non-surgical neurotechnology. It is designed to allow the human brain to directly interface with machines.
We know that DARPA is exploring human-machine interfaces that include direct connections between the brain and outside systems. That's been from the beginning of DARPA's information technology mission, and it continues to this day.
But there are those who believe that this same technology could also be used by DARPA as a new form of mind control.
I can disrupt an individual from the level of their cell to their system, and disrupt individuals on a variety of levels, from individuals all the way up to the social fabric. Target a specific individual, change or eliminate that individual with very little attribution and trace, and be able to leave prior to any attribution.
If you're targeting demonstrators, you make them suicidally depressed, and they don't care about demonstrating anymore because they're too upset. With one pulse frequency, you can just make people so suicidal they can't be bothered to act like a demonstrator anymore. All they want to do is sleep or lay in bed all day.
There's an infrastructure in place in the United States and worldwide that NSA has built in cooperation with other governments as well that intercepts basically every digital communication, every radio communication, every analog communication that it has sensors in place to detect.
If they can't get it through the internet, through the tapping of the lines or anything like that, through a commercial means, and they're unsure about you, they can get it by close access means, coming in and actually bugging your house or bugging your, or putting monitors in your system, in your house or on your computer. They can use your computer video to look back at you. or they can monitor within a certain distance the keystrokes you're making on your computer or what you're putting on your computer screen. And if that's not enough, they can come in through the firewall you think you have but don't, and go through your operating system that you think protects you but doesn't, and read your encrypted email that you thought was secure but isn't. Or they can simply wait for you to do decrypts if you've done that, pull them off, and use your unused CPU while you're on the computer to drain it. It's called active attack.
We are in a new Cold War, and this is why countries are developing this. I mean, really developing this. And this is why all of the microwave transmitters are going up everywhere. Because somebody, if they wanted to, could use them for other effects. The system is up and running.
MIT was awarded a number of years ago to Woody Norris. This is 2005 or 2006. And that award was $500,000 for doing what's called acoustic heterodyning, being able to send a signal from 2 points into an individual so they literally hear a voice in their head that nobody around them hears.
I mean, voices are the easiest ones because all you have to do is stimulate the cochlea with a set resonant frequency. It's very easy. Voices are very easy. And it isn't people imagining voices, they physically hear them. You can physically make people hear voices, certain voices, and it can be any conversation, and it can be anybody you want to hear. It can be a soft, angelic voice, it can be a god, it can be something that scares you like a devil. It could be anything.
DARPA let a couple of contracts back in 2011, 2012 to the University of California for what's called electronic telepathy, being able to monitor the brain activity of human beings at a distance and determine what they're thinking. And then on a second contract, actually developing complex signals, being able to send them into the brain of another person, literally transmit a message. This is where the technology is today.
And there is patents on this, and there are companies. This is real technology, guys. This isn't just hearsay. These methods and more are part of a vast plot to exert mind control over and torture the entire population. They practice these technologies on a select number of population now and have been for decades, literally decades. They use the satellites and they use vans with this equipment in it, but today they mostly just use the satellites. They don't need the vans as much unless you have a moving target. When you have a moving target, sometimes they have to do that. But otherwise, they just use the satellites. You know, they have all the technology, all the 5G, everything is connected. They also use technology on targets such as diplomats, congressmen, whistleblowers like myself, intelligence officers. Really, anyone can be targeted. I'll erase that. I have heard witnesses' testimony from all over the world dealing with the same issue. I've also heard testimony of the ones hired to be the targeted individuals, these subcontractors who are hired out. They're not even paid a lot, and they are trained and they go out. And I've heard testimony of them talking about the techniques they use and how they completely and totally harass people. And sometimes people even commit suicide over the stuff that's going on. It's horrible. It all depends on the objective of how far they will go. If their objective is to make somebody die slowly or kill themselves or just to discredit them, it all depends on what it is. And that determines how far they go with this technology. They can cause paranoia, PTSD, anxiety, isolation, which exacerbates all the other symptoms. And just an overview, they hire subcontractors for boots on the ground harassment with no checks and balances, like I stated earlier. They are hired, but they answer to absolutely no one. They are paid money to do a job. Nobody oversees it. They can do it whatever way they want, and they do. And no one's held accountable for these crimes. Another tactic of the enemy I'd like to go over, and this involves spying as well, but more on a mass scale. This is called controlled remote viewing. Stargate. Stargate is one of many of the remote viewing programs conducted under a variety of code names, including Sunstreak, Grill Flame, and Centerlane by DIA, and INSCOM and Scandate by the CIA. These efforts were initiated to assess foreign programs in the field of the purpose of intelligence gathering. The initial research program called Scandate, which means scan by coordinate. That's how they got that name, Scandate. It's just shortened. Was funded by the CIA beginning in 1970. Remote viewing research began in 1972 at the Stanford Research Institute in Menlo Park, California. This work was conducted by Russell Targ and Harold Puthoff, who were once with the NSA, and at the time of the research was a Scientologist, which is very interesting here. The effort initially focused on a few gifted individuals, such as New York artist Ingo Swann, and he also is a Scientologist. Many of the SRA empaths were from the Church of Scientology. What does that tell you? Individuals who appeared to show potential were trained and taught to use talents for psychic warfare. The minimum accuracy needed by the client was said to be about 65%, but it almost always continuously, constantly exceeded 65%. That means the accuracy was way the heck up there. But they're using the beast system technology.
Remote viewing is the ability to perceive details of a location or an activity that is otherwise shielded to you by it being distant or it being remote in time or space. Remote viewing is done under controlled conditions. The person who's doing the viewing is blind to the nature of what they're looking at.
Do you get visions, or how does the information come to you?
It's more of a general perception that's happening. You're getting all sorts of different kinds of detail about the location or the thing that you're looking at. It's not coming in a nice, clean, orderly, visual way.
Is remote viewing an extra sense?
It is a sense that every human being has to varying degrees. The ability or the aptitude for it is distributed in the general population, probably something like musical inclination is. Some people can't play a violin to save their life. Other people, they're 4 years old and they're up on stage and they're blowing your mind.
This is just another form of, Satanistic technology. And then the other thing I want to address that also brings it around to mass control, the Internet of Eyes and the digital prison that they're creating for us. That means everywhere, every street corner, every alley, in your phone, we're carrying around a device that's recording everything we say and recording everything that we do, and it's taking pictures. Anybody that thinks that's is not awake. Our television, anything with a speaker or a camera, so is recording everything. They're just bringing in the net of control, all these things together, and many more things. These are just a few that we're addressing today, but many more things. They're just reeling in the net to bring in more control over the population. And this is the beast system.
I heard a couple of years ago that even some of these mass shooters are under some kind of programming mind control, that they're a normal individual and then all of a sudden they're targeted and then they go ballistic, kill a whole bunch of people, and then end up killing themselves or being killed by the authorities because they're so dangerous and they won't, be taken alive. So
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's the first that I've heard of that kind of stuff a couple of years ago, and it makes me wonder, I'm not saying that every time there's horrific crimes of, mass shooters, that this is the reason why, but I'm sure there's probably a good number that They're playing around with people's minds and using them for nefarious ends. And it's just a test. And could you imagine if they, do that to a group of people all at the same time and make them into mass shooters? Instead of just one person, you have a multitude of people all over the place at the same time and make them into mass shooters. Instead of just one person, you have a multitude of people all over the place. It's it's evil.
It is evil. In Vietnam was the first time they were doing it on the enemy, and the United States was, and they were making them hear the voice of God. That technology, one of the things they call it is the voice of God, and that's where that term was coined, I believe, was in Vietnam. And they literally were coming out of their caves. I mean, they ended up winning that battle because they were tricking them into believing that their God was telling them to come out and surrender and show themselves. Because in Vietnam, they were winning because that was their territory. They were they knew how to travel underground. I mean, they knew their terrain, and they knew how to work it. But in this particular battle, they used the voice of God. And I mean, just think how far they've come now. I mean, it's way more advanced, and it's not done by an individual anymore. There might be somebody behind a computer saying this is what we're targeting, but you have a supercomputer doing all the work with AIs. I mean, they really are pretty advanced in their technology these days. Regular people don't understand this unless they become targeted, and God forbid.
If AI is demon possessed, it's just a double layer of evil.
It is. Power of the air. Yeah.
It is. Look at the I think it was October the 4th in the US, where there was everyone's smartphones or laptops or TVs, it was an alert system. It didn't happen here in Australia. I don't think you had it over where you are, Helga, either, in Canada. But I was researching a bit on it just to find out what it was, and it was supposed to be, the warning alert. I know where I am in Queensland, Australia, we have cyclones, which like typhoons, I guess. Not tornadoes, but we do get them too. But whenever a cyclone's coming, the first time I ever heard it, I didn't know what it was. It was a siren. My TV was turned off, and this was in the mid-80s, and it woke me. And I thought, what the heck is that? And it was a siren. And when I went out, and this was an old TV, it wasn't a flat one. When I went out into the lounge room, my TV screen was black, except it had a red light, like of what used to be on top of a police car or something. And the light was zinging around, and that siren was so loud. And I was yelling at my husband to wake him up. How he slept through that, I do not know, but hey, he's a man. And I'm going out trying to collect the kids, where I did not know what on earth this siren was. Then our phone rang, and it was a wall phone. And there was a recorded message on it which said, "Get to shelter. The cyclone will hit your area in, I think it was 36 minutes. Now, we don't have basements or anything. Where was shelter? I'd only been living in that particular part of Queensland, up the top end, for maybe 3 months. I knew cyclones went through, but I had no idea what was going on. And this was like, it was still dark. I don't even know what time it was. And the best thing I could do was gather the kids, and we all came into the lounge room because it was in the centre of the house. But that's how, right, I hadn't thought of that until, Chris, I just heard what you were saying. And going back to the October the 4th warning alert that went around the US, it came through on my TV, my 1980 3 TV, which was an old big box thing, and it turned on and it was flashing and it was very real. And I got really quite scared. The cyclone did happen and it was horrible. It didn't blow our home away. We lost most of our ducks. It blew them away, though. They gradually came back. Yeah, the odd duck would fly in here and there. And, oh, the rain was horrendous. But that came through then. And like I said, got a phone call. The phone went off. And I'd never actually put that into perspective until right now. Never heard it again, though. But when I spoke about it with the random neighbour, we were on 20 acres at the time. When I spoke to the neighbours, they said, "Oh yeah, that's the cyclone warning alert. We should have told you." Yeah, they should have. But just moving up, the real estate agent should have told us. And so it's very, very real. And we often play a game when we have my foster children over for dinner and there's the group of us and we're sitting at the dining room table. We will turn all of our phones off. We make sure that the computers and laptops that are in the study are off. Nobody can have an electronic item on. And we talk about one specific thing. And then after for example, we were talking about rum. And I was saying I can't drink clear spirits. I can only drink dark spirits. I have this, I have one tequila and I hit the floor. So clear spirits are no go for me. But we were talking about the difference between white rum and dark rum and how much we all like rum, which we don't. And we'll change subjects. We talked about cats once. And after we finished the meal, we turned our phones back on, our laptops, the electronics back on, and everyone has ads for whatever we talked about. I had ads for and other people, my foster son, he got an ad for white rum. And it was just really, and that's what happens. And we get different ads for different, whatever we talk about, we all get ads on our phones. The computer's got ads all over it, everything. So, they are listening to you. Getting back to what happened on October the 4th, it was just a massive, let's make sure everyone's got something on because we're going to pretend this is how we can warn them about wildfires or floods or things like that. And how many people who are supposedly awake got sucked into that? A lot. They thought the government was actually doing something nice.
Yeah.
I don't trust any government as far as I can throw them. And it's horrid. It's horrid.
I'd like to make a comment on something you said there for a second, and then I'll give it back to you. You're talking about like on a commercial level, and that is our proof that they're storing the information. But we have more than that, because during the congregational hearings, the NSA admitted that they store our information and all of it, and they would not disclose what they do with it or that they do anything with it. But I mean every single word we say, every single thing we write, every email, every phone conversation. They admitted that they store every single bit of it. Yep. So it's more than the reason why I say that, because people are going to hear this and go, oh, but it's just for commercial reasons to gear towards what you're looking for. That is not what it is. This is about control. And the corporations, let's look above the corporations and who owns those corporations, okay? But
all the money.
So they want all the money, they want all the power, and they want it over us. So back to you, Julianne. What were you saying?
Oh, it's so obvious. It's just so obvious. I have a Faraday. I've got a lot of Faraday things. I've got a Faraday box, a bag to stick my mobile phone in, and I've got a Faraday blanket that I actually put over my laptop. And people say to me, "You're a bit overzealous on that." I don't think I am. I really, really don't. But from now on, what I'm going to be doing, I just realised I've got going to get a Faraday box, and I'm going to get everyone to put, before they enter my property, they put all of their electronic devices in the box outside in the shed,
That's
so
good.
that as far as we can, our home will be a clean home. And you watch to see how quickly they'll come and say, "Are you all right?" Because when I put my cell phone into the Faraday bag whenever I go out, oddly enough, they can hear this right now. I've got my phone next to me. Good.
Now they're going to
Dare you to
advertise
come.
Faraday cages for you.
Well, they probably will. Yeah,
Give
everything
you a
will be
good
dark.
discount.
Yep.
Yeah,
Go
that'd
dark.
be.
Yeah, 50% off. But when I get my phone out of the Faraday cage, when I'm at home or when I remember, it always pops up with a message from Samsung. Are you okay? If not, tap this button. You'll be put
Creepy.
straight through to emergency services. Then I get from my provider, are you okay? You were blacked out for 4.5 hours. Are you okay? Hit this button if push here if you're not. And what's that? Obviously, I went offline and they're having a bit of a hissy fit because I went offline. And that's been happening for years.
Yeah.
So get Faraday things. Tell them Julianne sent you, and hopefully I'll get
Right.
a bit of a fee for marketing.
So Helva, tell us a little about the 15-minute cities and some of that, because I know you'll know a lot about that. This all goes together.
15-minute cities are, yeah, they're being presented as a great thing. And like everything diabolical on the surface, it looks like a great thing. Like seriously. I mean, if the mark of the beast wasn't connected to the Antichrist system, like it's a great thing. It's like, nobody can steal my identity. Nobody can, they'd have to chop my arm off to steal from me. I can't accidentally lose my credit cards or my debit cards. Nobody could take them, lift them out of my purse when I don't notice. There's so much convenience to what they're doing. 15-minute cities, the way that they're marketing them, it's just massive convenience. You live close to your work, you live close to your shopping, you live, everything's within walking distance, everything's clean energy, blah, 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 blah. And you're exactly like a frog going into a cold pot of water, and then they'll slowly start to turn up the heat, and you won't even realize you've lost your identity. You're right smack in the middle of 1984 type scenario, and you're enslaved. The phones are only just a small thing, the way they track you. If you don't have a phone and you're around somebody who does, that phone can recreate through, I'm not sure the technology, just sound waves, recreate the whole atmosphere within 6 to 8 feet of that phone. And if you don't have a phone but you're near someone who does, they know you're there, they know who you are.
That's interesting. I didn't know that. That's interesting.
Yeah.
And plus,
Yeah.
The digital banking that she was talking about, being in your hand, or your forehead. I do believe that's what this is gearing up to, these 15-minute cities, and everything digital. All you have to do is wave your hand, and you can check your balance, you can pay your bill, you can get into, like, they already set up Amazon and a few other things where you couldn't even get in without I believe it's hand or face recognition.
And
it's the hand
Some
though.
stores already, yeah.
Yep,
Some
yep.
stores already in the States. Okay, I live way, way out in the country somewhere. And so I'm not in the big city like I used to be. I was born and raised in Toronto, but I don't live anywhere near there anymore. But big cities and big retail outlets, some of them already are, you can't come in unless we do facial recognition on you, and you can't go out and pay for your stuff unless you do it through some kind of electronic means. Like there are stores nowadays that are refusing cash.
Crazy.
And that's the most private way to shop because the cash is untraceable.
Yeah. Julianne,
we
was
have
there
quite
a
a,
store
they're
that
doing
you
that
went
here.
into that was like that? Julianne,
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
what was that
just
store?
Kmart.
Kmart. Oh, you're
Do you
kidding.
have Kmart over there? No, no.
No, they have
Um,
Kmart here, but they don't do that here that I know of, but I don't go to Kmart.
Well, I went in, and as far as I'm concerned, they have self-serve checkouts, but they've got people standing there monitoring you using the self-serve checkouts. And as far as I'm concerned, if they're paying someone to monitor that, they can do my cashier. So I said, in the middle of it all, me being the quite lovely, quiet person I am, I just said, I've got cash. Who do I take? Where do I go? Which teller do I go to? And a lady came up to me and said, oh, ma'am, we use self-service here. I said, I don't. I want to use a teller and cash as legal tender. And she was trying to tell me to be quiet, which of course is my signal to be louder. And I was. And another lady came to me and she said, oh, you can come over here to the service desk and I can help you with your groceries. And I said, okay. And she rang it up. I handed her the cash. And she said to me, oh, you won't be able to use that much any longer. I said, honey, I pay your wages. So it's better for you if I do use cash. And there were so many people. I think there were about 12 self-checkout registers. And people were having trouble with their kids. They were having trouble. They weren't working. And the supervisors were running around like, oh, they were just running around like chooks with their heads cut off, trying to help the other people who were having problems with this service. And I said, wow, that really works well. I can see how fluid it is and why it's such a good idea. But yeah, so I pay cash. We have a big movement over here. I assume it's around the world though, called Cash is King. And we actually do name and shame on Facebook for businesses that don't take cash. And everyone that comes out to me, every way that I can possibly do it, I just say, how much for cash? And we actually have a disability program, and the government pays for my caring supports and my cleaning and stuff like that. And I pay people cash as opposed to them putting invoices in, because sometimes it can take up to 10 days for them to get their money back, and they've got to feed their families, they've got to put fuel in their car. And I pay cash, and I'm allowed to get a reimbursement on the receipt because I pay cash for a service or goods. And I've had many, many people say to me, oh, no, you've got to have a business number on it. You've got to have this on it and that on it. And I just say, show me in the law where that's the case. And they can't. And so that's how I'm working it until I can't work it anymore like that, until they do change the law. But the 15-minute cities, if you want to find out what about it, just look up in England. They're everywhere there. And I did see, I've got friends over there, and one lady sent me the thing that her vet had sent to her, that when they get called out to people's homes for their animals, and they've got to travel through 3 different 15-minute parts to get to the house, they're charged per city, 15-minute city that they go through. So if they go through 3, they're charged 3 times what they'd be charged if they just went into one. And the information that the vet had sent them is, if you live in any of these suburbs, be prepared for an extra cost to be added onto your vet bill, just so we can get to you. And if you've got to let us know which suburb you live in, because that'll depend on how much we have to charge.
Oh, that's crazy.
And over here, I can't plan a trip to go and see my sons and my grandchildren 2 states away, or I won't be able to soon, because the 15-minute cities, you've got to plot everywhere you're going. If we're driving, we have to plot what time we're going to have lunch, where we're going to have lunch. We can't just go, oh, there's a lookout, let's go and look out over the town, because that wouldn't be in our routine. How long it'll take us to get through that. And if you don't make it, if you go and have a look out the lookout, or you think, or your car breaks down or something, all of a sudden you don't get any money, your bank accounts will be closed and everything. And that's coming in.
Thank you for joining us for part 1 of the Clandestine Tactics of the Enemy. Please join us for next week for part 2. It will be very interesting.